Hello everyone, and welcome to SnailTV. The hero of today's retelling is crime drama Girl in the Box of 2016. At the very beginning, we're shown how a young couple is standing somewhere in the forest. The girl constantly holds a cross in her hands, as if she is praying. But what is the reason? The girl's name is Jen, and her young man is Cam. The guy pulls a corpse wrapped in the white bag out of the trunk. He asks the girl for help. They buried the corpse in the forest and are going to leave. It's 1977. 20-year-old Colin Stan was hitchhiking from Oregon to California. The girl noticed an approaching car and decided to ask them for a ride. It turned out to be Jen and Cam. The fellow travelers chat pleasantly, and then the guy suggested going to admire the ice caves. As soon as Colin got out of the car and turned away, Cam covered her mouth with his hand and put a knife to her throat. He took her back to the car and put her head in a special box. Having arrived at the right place, the man pulled the girl out of the box, put a bandage on her so that she could not see where she was, and carried her to his house. From this day, the torment of young Colin begins. Cam took the girl to the basement and hung her by her wrists, and then began to beat her cruelly with a whip. After that, Jen went to get a large box in which Colin will be located. The day is coming. Cam is going somewhere and Jen is praying. She hears screams from the basement and decides to check on the prisoner. She asks what she will do if she is released. Colin swears she won't go to the police and won't tell anyone about it. Cam comes in the evening and tells the slave not to scream, otherwise he will cut the vocal cords. He brought food and water, though in very meager quantities, as well as a container for coping with the need. Colin wonders why he is doing this, to which Cam replies that he has the right to do so. Then periodic whipping sounds and screams are heard from the basement. The couple goes to bed. Jen told how she went into the basement. If Colin is released, she will report everything to the police. Cam comes to the conclusion to keep the hostage for himself. A man wants to comfort his wife that while the girl is here, he will not have to hand Jen. She also asks for a promise that they will not do anything other than whipping. Cam goes to the basement and puts Colin in a big box according to her hate. He closes the locks, and now it will be impossible to get out of this wooden space. The girl remembers how her father did not want her to hitchhike because it is extremely dangerous, but she did not listen. Colin's family has already received a call from the owner of the house, which the girl rents, and said that there is no payment. The family went to the police for a search, but they were told that the girl had already turned 18, and in fact, she has the right to do whatever she wants. Jen comes to work for Cam and informs him that she is pregnant. She also adds that it's time to release the hostage, because they will have a new family member. Cam didn't like this idea and suggested waiting for more. Upon returning home, their neighbor says that he can fix their stove in the basement, to which Cam replies a little later. The man goes down to the basement to Colin and brings her a newspaper that says about the popularity of the underground slave trade. Cam is talking about a certain company that also catches slaves and sells them. He's been with the company for a while, and they are providing security, so if his slave tries to escape, they'll track him down. All this is a psychological device, so that if there was an opportunity to escape, the girl had a fear of being caught by the company. Also, Cam tells the story of his acquaintance with Jen. She was bought out of the company by him, and then they got married. Cam should officially register the girl as a slave, so he hands Colin a contract document with the company and asks her to sign it. The slave was released from the basement, and an identification number is hung on her. From now on, her name is key. New rules are being established. To Cam, the slave addresses as master, and to his wife, mistress. She must follow all their orders and obey. One more thing, whenever someone shouts attention, Colin has to run to a certain place, take off her clothes, and reach for the ceiling with her hands. Cam makes the girl wash the floors. During the execution, she notices the Orthodox Bible and look it, but Jen noticed it. She instantly pulled the book out of her hands and showed the slave her place, knocking over a bucket of water with her foot. Once again, when Cam returns home, he meets a neighbor who also says that he needs to check the oven in the basement. The man understands that the situation is heating up and they need to move. A labor begins, which is successful. Cam allows Colin to get out of the wooden box and look at the newborn baby. She asks to hold the child and is allowed to. A man introduces her to Amber, a newborn. It's 1979. It's been 683 days since Colin was abducted. The family and the slave have already moved to a new home, away from everyone. The prisoner cooked dinner and knelt down, as she usually does. The family was preparing for the meal when Jen noticed that the girl didn't put a fork for her. Cam immediately shouted attention and began to brutally beat the slave. But suddenly, Jen noticed that the fork just fell off the table. She ran into the room and began to pray. Cam doesn't like that Jen spends more time with Amber than with him. He also understands that his wife is jealous of his slave. When Colin was hanging up her clothes, Cam didn't take the moment to come up with a new story about the company. He said that there was a slave girl who ran away from her master. She turned to a policeman, who also turned out to be a slave owner from the company, who immediately turned her in. She was severely punished. Her arms, legs, and even her tongue were cut off. And then they were hung up and fed through a tube. A year passed until she died. Such intimidation still affected the girl. We will find out about this in the next moment. Cam is going to chop wood for sale and takes Colin with him. Upon arrival, he tells the slave that the lumberjack standing next to him is a slave owner. You can call Cam the owner, otherwise the other one will want to buy the girl. Cam starts chopping down the tree. They have a pleasant conversation. The man even allows the girl to write a letter home. Suddenly, he hits himself on the leg with an axe, as a result of which he cannot move. Colin is faced with a choice: to escape from here because the path is absolutely open, or to remain in the possession of Cam. Because of fear, the slave still stayed and helped the man. Being at home, in bed, Jen is outraged why only her husband uses a slave, because she's common. And as a result, they decide to divide it. Cam pulls Colin out of the drawer, and the couple begins to make love, as suddenly Cam switched to a slave. Jen was furious about this and put forward a condition: never to pull the slave out of the box. Their house is already suffocating in disarray because no one is tidying up in it. Jen lets Colin come out of the crate to eat. She noticed how much Amber had grown. The girl has already lost count of how long she has been in illegal detention. Colin has terrible dreams, as if an angel appears to her, as if her box is filled with water, and she begins to suffocate. How suddenly she was able to break through the wooden platform with her feet and get out of the box. Cam noticed this and found Colin in the bathroom. She had a Bible in her hands. The man sent the slave back again. When Cam left somewhere, Jen allowed the slave to get out of the box. The hostess invited the girl to read the Bible together. They found many similarities with the characters from the book. Then Jen asks not to call her mistress anymore. March 1983. It has already been 2,135 days since the abduction, or almost 6 years. Cam tells Colin to put the baby to bed and wait for him in the bedroom. While the wife is not at home, they periodically make love. Cam plans to marry her sometime in the future and have a child together. Colin asked when it all started, when such inclinations appeared. Cam told how as a child he started drawing bound women, and then he met Jen, who was the first to let him try something on her. But she couldn't handle it as well as Colin. If this had happened to his daughter, he would have killed such people. Jen started spending more time with Colin. They went to church together. The prisoner planted plants while Jen watched. When she goes to work, Cam will spend time with her. Jen, Colin, and Amber were playing together, but Cam comes in and asks his wife to move away. But she first wants to finish the game when suddenly Cam's voice changes, and he orders the woman to go to another room. Then lashes and screams are heard. September 1983. It has been 2,310 days, or a little more than 6 years, since the abduction. Cam called Colin to tell her the good news. The company approved a visit to her parents. But in order to go to them, the girl must pass several obedience tests. In one of them, the girl must pick up a gun, insert the case into her mouth, and pull the trigger. Fortunately, it was not loaded. Colin is heading to her parents. Before letting the girl go, he wants to remind her that the company is watching her parents' house and listening to everything, so it's better not to do stupid things so that no one gets hurt. The family is extremely happy to have a long-awaited meeting with Colin. They sit down at the common table and ask how the girl is doing. They don't know anything yet. They haven't seen the girl in a terrible state. Her sister began to suspect something. Her behavior changed a lot, and she herself changed a lot. The next day, Cam arrives, who has delighted the family that they are going to get married soon. They take a photo as a keepsake, and Cam and Colin leave. The slaveholder and his slave are lying in bed as Jen arrives. She's packing her things and wants to go somewhere. Cam is very angry. He has stopped affectionately treating the slave, if you can call it that. It's raining heavily outside. He takes Colin to the garage in the basement with almost no clothes. It's terrible to be in this room. The cold penetrates, drips from the street. Jen arrives and frees Colin. The girl believes that the man is only a little angry and soon it will end. But there is a shovel nearby. This is a bad sign. Jen tells a story about a former slave Cam. She also hitched a ride, but when the man brought her home, she didn't stop screaming, and eventually he killed her and buried her in the woods. Cam approaches the garage and does not find Colin. Meanwhile, Jen had already taken the girl to the bus stop. She needs to go home, but she is still afraid because of the slave trading company. In fact, no company exists. Colin gets on the bus and drives away, waving from the window. Cam was sentenced to 104 years in prison. The abduction of the girl lasted 2,640 days. She attributes her survival to her faith. It was the Canadian drama Girl in the Box on the SnailTV channel. Put likes, leave comments, subscribe, and we'll be back soon with a new interesting retelling.